putting a program together that they can actually get done so they can achieve the outcome, and then you can continue on your course of action.
Is that if you work your bicep, you will have a change in your bicep.
Andrew, help. I'm a fitness coach and I don't know how to prescribe exercises and nutrition and programming and lifestyle periodization to people. Where should I start? Sadly, that is very much a common request and question that we get, and that I'll say, Andrew, mostly you get. Probably from me too, of like, hey Andrew, what should I do? Cardio before or after my strength training? But when we're thinking about this exercise selection, I'm gonna lead off. I don't know what Andrew's gonna say, but I'm gonna lead off. It is one of the least important things that you can do when it comes to your programming. That's my take on it. Most unprofessional opinion right there. But we're going to actually give you some tools, tips, and tricks in the next 3 to 5 minutes on how to make life a little bit easier, how to make it more streamlined, how to make it more effective, and then we're going to expand upon it for the next 10 to 15. So if you need something quick, listen for these next 5 minutes and you're in for a treat. What do we got, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, it goes as simple as there's a guy named Jeff Martone, and I don't know why this stuck out to me. I heard this over probably close to 15 years ago now. We're talking about programming. It was a CrossFit kettlebell certification. So most of you are already going to tune out, but chill, listen, hang out. He was a good coach. And what he suggested was you pick 3 to 5 exercises. You do 3 to 5 challenging sets that leave you tired at the end. And the rep range is going to change. But when we talk about keeping it as simple as possible, that's probably about as granular as you should think about doing stuff when you're starting out. Now, as you get more advanced, that's going to change drastically. But 3 to 5 seems to be a roughly pretty simple, roughly magical number that if you do that repetitively, your body is going to change. Now, Steve says exercise selection doesn't matter. I kind of agree.
I thought you were going to blow it out of the water.
I mean, it's like when we think about what's important, what's not, exercise selection is probably 3rd row, 4th row.
I mean,
down.
well, and I've always said this, like if you want to get a bigger, wider back, squats and bench press are both going to produce the exact same outcome.
Okay, I had to think about that for a second. I mean, so you're onto something there. It's opposite day for our listeners that can't see his face. But yeah, I mean, so obviously it's clearly tongue in cheek, but we know that if you do leg exercises and chest exercises, your back is not likely to see a significant change. Although they did actually just come out with a study yesterday, not to make this already confusing, but there was this group of individuals that were doing this scientific experiment. They found that when they did maximal effort sprints on a bike, like on an ergometer, a stationary bike, they actually had an increase in their arm hypertrophy. Like, I don't know. Body does weird stuff. But the general idea that is pretty heavily supported by science right now is that if you work your bicep, you will have a change in your bicep. Most. You might have a little bit of a change in your legs, but, so find the area that you think you need to work on and then make that area tired. That's literally about it. If you want to now add an element of injury prevention, because maybe you're worried about your shoulder being funky, or maybe you're trying to get some flexibility training in there, that's where now exercise selection and what exercises you pick during your workout becomes significantly more important, because you can kill 5 or 6 birds with one particular exercise. For instance, when you take a reclined bicep curl, right, where you're laying backwards on an inclined bench and your arms are hanging, you're actually getting a little bit of a pec stretch, a little bit of an anterior shoulder stretch, a little bit of stretch in your long head bicep. So for people that sit and have this rounded forward posture all day, they might want some of that additional flexibility and kind of opening the chest region up and getting that front part of their shoulder to have some of that stretch. So my point is, you'll get a bicep change from that, and you'll also get a little bit of stretch. So you can make exercise selection as complicated as you would like. Just pick 3 to 5 of them, make the area that you want to change, get tired by doing it enough, and then rest for a couple days, do it again, wash, rinse, repeat. That's pretty much it. you want to talk about the nuances and the less than subtle things, stick around because that's what we're about to jump into.
3 to 5 exercises, 3 to 5 sets, and somewhere between in 5 million and 5 reps per set per exercise.
You could even say 1 to 5 million. 5 million is probably the limit. If you do more than 5 million reps, you're probably going to take a forever nap. But yeah, I mean, if you want to keep exercise selection as simple as possible, that's really it. Make the area tired, do it 3 to 5 times, do 3 to 5 different exercises, and that's it.
Done. Nice and easy. But
this is the shortest podcast
but
there's more. Wait,
let's
there's
say
more.
I really, really want to focus. Like I have this slightly advanced person. They've been working out consistently for a period of time. And I know that if I show up with 3 exercises and 3 sets apiece and they're doing 8 to 12 reps, it's probably not going to be the biggest thing that's going to facilitate some type of change for them. And let's say this person is down the road of, I want to get a stronger posterior chain. I want my hips, my hams, my glutes, all those things to just be rock solid. I want like big booty building looking hips, and I'm just going to go out there. So should I just do endless kickbacks, or should I actually be more selective in what I have going on?
I mean, so we're kind of getting into a fatigue conversation, which there is a lot of stuff that's emerging right now that doesn't really align with what we've known for a long time. You know, you mentioned the 8 to 12 rep range, right? And I know we're talking about exercise selection, so bear with me, guys. So when we talk about doing an 8 to 12 rep range of like heavy squats versus an 8 to 12 rep range of leg extensions, right? Both are lower body exercises. Both have a lot of quad demand. One is just a little more intensive and a little more fatiguing from a global perspective, meaning it's going to make more of your overall body tired because your brain is now having to send a lot of signals through the nervous system to these other muscles to stabilize your back squat, to make sure that your back stays in a good position so your legs can do their job, to make sure your arms are gripping that bar, to make sure your shoulder creates that good shelf and it doesn't roll around on you, to make sure that your hamstrings don't allow your knee to traverse too far and have your knee basically explode. Like those things are constantly happening. And now you're going to, generally speaking, also have to stabilize all the little muscles around your spine. So point being is that like there's just an increased fatigue versus sitting on a chair and then just straightening your legs, bending your legs, straightening your legs, bending your legs with nothing else particularly moving because everything else is just sitting in the same spot. Now, when you think about that, like the stability component does matter because it creates extra fatigue. Can you leg press more than you can back squat? Most people can significantly back squat more. So if you want to start thinking about it, and this is actually a great piece of social media content for people that are trying to figure out how to simplify training. Like, and I think like, you know, admittedly Whoop will take a percentage, right? But Whoop did just come out with a Whoop 5. And so far it's a little bit smaller. The biological age stuff is interesting, but we're not here to talk about that. But when you think about, should you do the same exercise at the same intensity level all the time, anytime you're trying to work your lower body, right? Should you, if you can lift 100 pounds and that's your most, should you lift 100 pounds every single time you're going to squat 100? Like it probably doesn't make sense because some of the variables that come in now, such as your Whoop or your athlete monitoring thing that's telling you, hey, you've been under recovered for about 3 days. And so for instance, we went on a travel trip. I was out there, flying to and from across the central time zones. My Whoop strap was telling me that I had a red recovery, right? We had a little bit of a chill, bro.
Wait a minute. Don't.
It was asleep. We had a couple drinks.
Do not blame flying and travel for your red recovery.
Well, hang on now, because going into that day, red. Going into the next day, red.
Monday, we stayed up until midnight.
And we woke up at like 5:45 a.m.
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with you flying on a plane. That has everything to do with getting 5 hours of sleep.
Oh, I'm saying, well, no, hang on, because you do travel time zones. 1 hour is not super crazy, but it does affect you.
What was Wednesday? What was Wednesday's recovery?
Wednesday's recovery, we had a couple drinks Tuesday night, so like that was a pretty big moderating variable. Bro, you better chill, man. But guys, so getting back to my whoop is telling me, Andrew, you're under recovered, right? And normally it's kind of take it with a grain of salt one day in a row. The second day we were there, we got a little bit less sleep because I think flying in, I just struggled to fall asleep, right? It was an early flight. You kind of get the whole deal, a little anxious, a little restless. So I woke up and it was like 34%. The next night, went to bed because we were up. I think by the time we finished dinner, it was close to like 11, 11:30. By the time we got to bed, 12. Probably the time I fell asleep, 12:30, and we woke up. I think around 5 hours later, maybe 6. And so then naturally, didn't give myself the best recoverability. Another red day, right? And then the next night, we went out. We went out to dinner. We had a couple alcoholic beverages, and that also is not usually something that will get my recovery back in the green. Because obviously, like, we know that everyone's gonna have a different threshold for how alcohol impacts you. But if you have 3 days in a row of being in the teens or in the increase or a decrease in your recovery, you probably don't want to go out and try to back squat the heaviest thing that you can, knowing that, oh, I could do it last week. Well, yeah, last week you were fresh. So if you still want to train hard because you need to make the muscle tired or the series of muscles, maybe you go do a leg press instead, which is exactly what I did today. So you reduce complexity, the more fatigue's in the system. You might even just do a single joint versus a multiple joint exercise. And so now we can start to take down what type of exercise should you consider doing. And I personally like to look at that against the backdrop of how complicated is your life, how stressed are you, and how trained are you? Because if you have a high level of stress, a low level of training history, meaning like you're one of those people that maybe dabble in the gym, you don't really know what the fuck you're doing, right? And then you have a high degree of stress, you're setting yourself up for failure to load the system really in a way that's going to challenge it and not let you recover the next day. So that's where I say you might be better off just actually using machines, which I mean, that'll blow up a lot of functional coaches where everyone's telling you got to back squat these days because it's the best for your neuromuscular system and your flexibility. Well, yeah, I mean, what's best in the best case scenario is not always going to be best for everyone because of the other lifestyle variables that will interrupt your recovery cycle. So, I mean, those are things that I think about just from a very big picture perspective. I mean, Steve, with your personal training history and you know, your current training endeavors, like, how do you pick your exercises? Because, you know, recently you've started to use some of the AI stuff for your planning.
Yeah, so it's funny. I'm actually building out what'll be my next round of workouts, and you know, the first thing I always look at is how is my most recent one or two sections, phases, whatever you want to call it, periodized components gone. And 2 ago went really, really well. Stuck to it pretty well. Was able to. I think I only missed 2 workouts out of over the course of 6 weeks, and whatnot. Where this most recent one, it has been blown up because I've been on the road 4 weeks straight. So I've worked out.
Mm-hmm.
I've just not accomplished the workouts as I set out to kind of accomplish them. So I'm like, all right, the things that I wanted to get out of that, I definitely didn't necessarily get what I could have. And then what was the plan, or where did I want to go next? Well, what does also my lifestyle look like over the next 4 to 6 weeks, or as long as I want to run this? And I'm like, all right, well, traveling is usually what blows up my ability to train as I want to train, keep me on my sleep schedules, all those components. The next 4 weeks, I don't really have any travel. I'm like, all right, great, cool, good there, thumbs up. I can push pretty hard from that perspective, but I need to take into account I didn't do everything and accomplish everything I wanted to. So what does it look like for me coming up here? Well, I'm probably going to go down the road of somewhere in the range of like 4 workouts, maybe 5 a week, is going to be the goal. But I need to mix in a little bit more kind of endurance and cardio stuff still, because I didn't do it as much as I had wanted to after going through the bulk phase, because I don't want to be big and bulky without like having a weak heart. Like, that just sounds kind of dumb. So for me coming up, it's what does my life look like? What can I do? But also historically, what does these past 2 phases look like? Did I accomplish what I wanted to do? And kind of build the exercise kind of schedule around that. I wanted to, you know, 2 phases ago, lots of squats, lots of deads, lots of barbell stuff going on. And I'm like, hey, I want to just really push on some, not all single joint movements. I still want to squat to make sure I keep it going, but maybe I'm not going to do 5, 6, 7 sets of squats in a single workout. Maybe I'm going to do 3 sets of squats and then go do a hack squat or a leg press as well to focus on some of those finer mechanics. So that's kind of some of the color I'll add in terms of looking through what's going on in that lens. And I obviously know my life very well. When you're programming for somebody, that can get a little more challenging because, hey, what is that going to be? What's that going to look like? But trying to ask those questions and build that program around what they have going on and what they have had going on is going to help you with putting a program together that they can actually get done so they can achieve the outcome, and then you can continue on your course of action.
Yeah, and that's, you hit on a really great point, and that's why we really encourage people to empower their clients to make those decisions, which means that if you're empowering your clients to make those decisions, you have to educate them so they can make the best decision given their constraints and circumstances. And knowing that, and this is where it gets frustrating as a coach sometimes for newer coaches, because they'll sit there and they're like, I said that you have to do this bench press in this exact way with these elbows 45 degrees. And like, bro, I told you I was traveling. I don't have access to that piece of equipment. You're like, well, if you don't want the result, then don't do the work, right? That would be a very low level coach. And so rather than doing that, this is where you need to be able to take things down and break them into larger categories. And so we gave you the very simple version up front, right? 3 to 5 exercises, 3 to 5 sets, make the area that you want to work on tired. But then how do you know which area to work on, right? And how do you know how to change that variable so that way you're not overtraining or you're not undertraining? Because you can do both. And if you're undertraining, you'll know that you are because your muscles won't change, right? Your body won't change. Larger component than that, that's just the simple, probably easy way to tell. If you're training too much, your body's going to feel like shit all the time and your body's not going to change, right? Or not going to change nearly as much. And when you find the Goldilocks zone, you'll always feel like you did enough. Sometimes you'll even feel like maybe you did a little bit less. But when your body's actually changing, that's a good indication. Exactly what Steve was just saying, like how many workouts did you do? What did you notice change? And I think that's a very valuable perspective to help you shape your stuff. Now, going back to exercise selection, you kind of have 2 ways to look at it. You can either look at patterns or parts. And these are the 2 most commonly acceptable ways for most people to get in there and start to pick which exercises they're going to put into that 3 to 5 exercise segment, right? You have different patterns, which kind of think about it like this. You can push things and you can pull things. It's really about it. And if you really want to get crazy, you can only pull things and you can pull them in one direction. Don't worry about it. Push and pull, squat, hinge, right? And then some people will add things like core. Some people add locomotion. Those will be 6. Let's just say push, pull, squat, hinge for right now, right? You think about pushing and pulling, those are upper body things. Squatting and hinging are more of your lower body things. Now, some of you will be like, well, deadlifting is a total body exercise. Yes, chill. We're taking the most simplified approach. Understanding that the deadlift is a total body thing is like, that's kind of level 3, 4, 5, where those things start to matter. If someone's listening to this podcast and they're understanding like, oh, okay, that's interesting way to break that up, don't worry about that, right? If you're someone that's been deadlifting for a very long time and you're worried about CNS fatigue and peripheral fatigue and like those are conversations for you, then yeah, that's a very valid concern. But most people that are recreationally training to look better naked shouldn't worry about that probably, right? Unless there's injury present, and that's another dimension that you'd want to consider as a coach. Push, pull, squat, hinge. When you talk about pushing, I mean, this is where it exactly is that. You're just taking your hand and you're reaching it forward. You think about pulling, taking that hand and that elbow and reaching it behind you, right? Squatting is a bigger knee bend. Hinging is a bigger hip bend. Like, that's really about it. And so when you think about how you wrap these things together, what we know is that going away from the simple stuff that we talked about in the beginning, a little more into the advanced stuff, like it changes. Your exercise should mimic what lifestyle demands you have. If you're an athlete, you should probably do athlete things, meaning athletes rotate a lot, they twist a lot, they turn, they cut directions, they move side to side, right? When you think about how much of that stuff happens inside of the average person's workout plan, not much. And so this is why whatever you do a lot of, you get really good at. But there's also, you get good at it at the expense of other stuff. And when I say other stuff, I'm referencing like if you move forward and backward all the time, you get really good running in a straight line. You probably don't get really good at running side to side or cutting and changing direction because you haven't practiced it. And you have to give that up to make an incremental change at the top. So those would be the other things that I'd consider you to now, like patterns. Now, inside of your patterns, you have body parts, right? Push, pull. Well, there's a lot of muscles that are used in pushing something in front of you. You have your tricep, you have your deltoid, which is the front part of your shoulder, you have your pec, right? Those things will be the primary movers, right? And then you have secondary, and then you also have tertiary and stabilizing muscles. So that gets pretty complex. So that's why I say just start with like 3 to 5, pick your patterns, isolate some parts out of that, and then kind of go from there. So I guess to package that all for you in terms of what that actually looks like, if you're going to do and I generally suggest doing total body days for most people, meaning you pick some upper body emphases, you pick some lower body emphases, and you split your cardio off to a different training session 3 to 5 hours later. Doing cardio and strength training at the same time in concurrent training models actually is kind of not the best sometimes, because you get a little bit of a reduced change by creating that level of competition. Basically, like you have these things that are competing with these things, and they only have so many resources to go around. So, but I might warm up, right? Always warm up. Probably a good idea so you don't get hurt. Warming up for the birds, right? Warm up 5 to 10 minutes. Do some mobility stuff if you need to, if you're feeling stiff, right? Some people, if you don't feel stiff and you feel okay and like you're ready to train, go do your first exercise. You might be doing a lower body push day or like a lower body squat. So go squat, right? 3 to 5 sets, challenging sets, which means you might do 5 total because you do 1 to 2 warm-up sets. Make sure it feels good, load it up, get after it, right? Do that 3 to 5 sets. Cool. Move on to the next thing. So if you just did a compound movement squat thing, cool. That's your pattern. Now you go do a part. Maybe now you go do a leg extension, which is a single joint exercise that facilitates growth and change in the same muscles as the squat. Now you're working the quads, 3 to 5 sets, right? And then maybe you go to an upper body exercise like a pulling exercise. So maybe you do a lat pull down. Maybe you do a bent over barbell row, and that's your 3 to 5 sets. And then maybe you just do a straight arm lat pull down, or maybe a bicep curl, and that would be your single joint pulling exercise for the day. Maybe you finish up with some core and some stretching, right? Like that's it. It's simple. Some people are doing like fucking 14 exercises and they're doing them like 2 sets apiece. The ACSM suggests you do like 8 to 12 exercises for like 1 to 2 sets if you're a geriatric person. I'm like, that sounds like a lot of setup breakdown. That shit's miserable. I'd rather do the same exercise enough times, get really tired, and then leave. So you can make it as complicated as you want. You can keep it as simple as you want, but 3 to 5, pick the pattern, do a couple things, do a couple parts associated with the pattern, and then call it a day. So Steve, anything to add as we wrap
just,
up?
if you found that helpful, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed yet, I don't know why not. Smash that button. Throw some comments down below if you want to hear more. And thanks for listening to Beyond the Pump, where we break down the business of fitness and nutrition. Until next time, gang.